The war came without warning, like a shadow falling across the stars. One moment, Earth's colony on planet Veritas 7 was thriving, full of laughter and trade. The next, the sky cracked open and ships fell like burning knives. Captain Marek had only just landed to deliver supplies to the outpost near Ridge 9. He wasn't a soldier anymore. He'd left that life behind after too many blood-soaked years in the outer ring. But now he stood frozen, eyes wide, watching the horizon burn red. Sirens wailed as fire swallowed buildings in the distance. Screams echoed from the colonies. Shattered domes. A child's voice rose among them, small, high, and desperate. Marek's boots moved before his mind did. His past had trained his body well. He dashed through smoke and falling rubble, his breath shallow from the heat. He ducked under a collapsed support beam and climbed over shattered walls. Then he saw her. A little girl, no older than 7, sitting alone beside a broken support column, crying into her arms. Marek dropped to one knee, reaching out. "Hey, you're okay now. I've got you." The girl looked up slowly. Her skin was a shade too pale for a normal human. Her eyes, violet and glowing, faintly met his without fear. She didn't speak. She only reached out and wrapped her arms tightly around his chest. Marek picked her up without question. She weighed nothing. Her warmth was the only thing grounding him as the sky thundered above. He moved fast, weaving through the ruined colony. Drones flew overhead but ignored him. The invaders didn't seem interested in killing everyone, just something. That made Marek more uneasy than he wanted to admit. A roar split the air, not from a ship, not from a bomb. It was something alive. Something hunting. Marek froze behind a half-collapsed wall, shielding the girl with his body. Her small fingers clutched tight around his jacket. He risked a glance through a crack in the wall. A tall figure moved through the smoke. Graceful. Deadly. Not human. She wore armor of polished bone and leather, and a helmet shaped like a predator's skull. In one hand she held a blade that shimmered with heat. The Huntress moved like death itself. Every step was silent, every movement full of power. But she wasn't chasing soldiers, she was tracking them. Marek could see her gaze fixed on the girl in his arms. Marek's instinct screamed to run, but something else stopped him. The girl didn't seem afraid of the figure approaching. In fact, she had gone quiet, calm, and alert. Her eyes, those bright violet eyes, watched the Huntress with strange recognition. The warrior stopped a few steps away. She removed her helmet. With one slow motion, long silver hair fell around sharp, angular features. Her skin was marked with tribal ink. Her eyes were the same violet as the girl's. "I knew it," the Huntress said softly. "You kept her hidden all these years. But now the truth finds light." Marek blinked, confused. The Huntress looked directly at him. Her voice trembled with emotion. "You finally meet your daughter." The girl reached for the Huntress with both hands. Marek stepped back, unsure if this was a trap. But the woman didn't raise her weapon. She knelt before the child and pressed her forehead to hers, whispering in a language Marek didn't understand. "Who are you?" Marek asked, still holding her loosely. "And what is she?" The Huntress looked up at him. For the first time, he saw pain behind her eyes. "She is the last of my line. The blood of 2 worlds. And the key to peace or extinction." Explosions rumbled far off, but none of them moved. Marek glanced down at the child in his arms again. She wasn't crying now. She was watching him, like she knew him. Like she chose him. His voice barely escaped his throat. "What do you mean, daughter?" Marek didn't move as the Huntress stood tall again. Her presence radiated power, but not in the way of soldiers or warlords. It was older than that. Older and deeper. The girl in his arms looked between them. Then she reached again for the alien woman, her eyes steady. Marek hesitated. Something told him this moment mattered. "She's not human," Marek finally said. But neither are you. So what does that make me in all this? The Huntress looked at him, her jaw tight. You're the only reason she's still alive. That's what matters now. Smoke drifted past the broken buildings around them. The sky above was blackened from orbital strikes. Still, the invaders had stopped bombing. As if they were waiting. I didn't come here for this, Marek said. I came to deliver supplies. That's all. But the moment I landed, the war began. The Huntress looked down at the child again. Her expression softened in a way that shocked him. It wasn't the face of a killer now. It was something maternal. She's half of me, she said. And half of something you wouldn't believe even if I showed you. The girl placed her small hand over Marek's chest. He felt a warmth spreading beneath her touch. His heartbeat calmed. His thoughts sharpened. The fatigue in his bones melted. What is she doing to me? He asked, stepping back slightly. She's choosing, the Huntress said. She is a bridge child, a seed of two species long divided. Her bond with you is not blood. It is soul. A distant scream echoed across the ruined colony. Marek instinctively turned toward the sound. Shapes moved in the smoke. Not soldiers. Something else. The Huntress growled low, drawing her blade again. They've come. The ones who want her dead. Marek crouched behind a broken vehicle, still holding the girl. Who are they? They call themselves the Purge, she said. Extremists. They see mixed blood as a threat to their control. If they find her, they'll erase her and everyone who helped her. Marek clenched his jaw. He'd fought zealots before. They never stopped. They only burned everything in their way. She's just a child, he said. How could she threaten anyone? The Huntress knelt beside him. Because the prophecy says the bridge child will unify or destroy the stars. Those who fear change have chosen to kill rather than hope. Blaster fire cracked in the distance. The Purge were drawing closer. The girl clutched Marek tighter. He could feel her fear, but also something strange. She's speaking inside my head, he whispered. She says you lied. You didn't come to save her. You came to judge me. The Huntress didn't deny it. Her gaze was sharp. Yes, I had to know if your kind was still capable of protecting life instead of exploiting it. Marek stood up slowly, holding the child like she weighed nothing. Well, you have your answer. Now tell me, how do we survive this? The Huntress gave a small nod. There's a safe zone east of the cliffs. Old tech buried under the ruins. If we get her there, she can trigger a signal. One the galaxy has forgotten. And what happens then? He asked. Then the real war begins. But maybe, just maybe, the right side will finally have its champion. The girl looked up at Marek once more. Her eyes glowed brighter now. He didn't know what she was, what she would become, or why fate had dropped her into his arms. But he knew one thing clearly now. He wasn't letting her go. They moved quickly through the ash-covered ruins as shadows stalked behind them. Marek kept the girl tight in his arms while the Huntress led the way, blade in hand and eyes scanning every corner. The wind carried a strange smell, not just smoke, but something metallic and ancient. Marek had smelled it once before during a battle on Juno Station. It was the scent of old technology reactivating. The girl stirred, her hand reaching toward a crumbled tower in the distance. That way, she whispered softly. Marek couldn't tell if she was speaking aloud or into his mind, but he obeyed. The Huntress paused at the edge of a fallen overpass. This was once a defense grid. Hidden beneath are the chambers of the architects. They built the bridges between stars before even our wars began. How do you know all this? Marek asked, his grip tightening around the girl. Because I was trained to kill what they left behind, she said. But now I must protect it. Marek stepped carefully over broken concrete, his boots echoing against ancient steel. The deeper they went, the quieter the air became. Even the sound of war faded behind them. They reached a sealed metal hatch buried under collapsed stone. The girl slipped from Marek's arms and walked straight to it, placing both hands against its surface. Symbols lit up where her palms touched. Strange glowing runes shimmered beneath her fingers. Then the ground shook as the hatch slowly opened. Inside, a spiral staircase descended into darkness. Cold air rushed up, smelling of dust and memory. The Huntress motioned for Marek to go first. "I've seen too many traps in places like this," she said. "If anything stirs, be ready to run." Marek moved carefully down the stairs with the girl beside him. Each step echoed with the weight of time. The walls were covered in carvings he didn't understand. They reached a circular chamber, filled with humming machines and long-dead lights. The girl stepped forward, and the entire room lit up with a soft, warm glow. "What is this place?" Marek asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The Huntress knelt beside one of the glowing pedestals. "This is a beacon chamber. The architects used it to send messages across galaxies in seconds." The girl climbed onto the central platform. She closed her eyes, and a low hum filled the room. Images began to appear in the air stars, maps, and faces Marek didn't recognize. "She's activating it," the Huntress said. "She's calling out to every hidden signal across the stars. But who's going to answer?" Marek asked. "Anyone who still remembers what peace once looked like," she replied. Suddenly, alarms began to flash red. The door above them slammed shut. The girl's body trembled as the light around her flared. "She's forcing the signal too fast," the Huntress shouted. "It's overwhelming her mind." Marek rushed to the platform and grabbed her shoulders. "Stop, slow down, you're not alone. We're here." The girl gasped and collapsed into his arms. The lights faded but didn't vanish. The chamber stayed alive, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. The Huntress placed a hand on Marek's back. "She did it. The signal is out, but now they'll come. Allies or enemies, we don't get to choose." Footsteps echoed from the stairwell above. Not loud, not many, but wrong. The Huntress rose, weapon ready. Too soon. They tracked the pulse. Marek looked down at the girl, still breathing but unconscious. He set her down gently and turned toward the noise, lifting a cracked metal pipe as his only weapon. The Huntress gave him a sharp nod. "We hold them here. No matter who they are." Together, they faced the dark stairwell as movement crept closer. Through the dim red light, Marek gritted his teeth and stood firm. He would protect her with his last breath. Asterisk. The sound of boots against metal grew louder as Marek gripped the pipe in both hands. His breath was slow, his stance firm. The Huntress stood ahead of him, her blade glowing faintly in the red light. Then the figures stepped into view. But they weren't soldiers of the Purge. They were something else. Covered in cloaks made from star beast hide, their eyes shimmered. Like mirrored glass, the Huntress narrowed her gaze. "Archivists," she whispered. "I thought they were extinct." One of the beings stepped forward and lowered his hood. His skin was translucent blue. Lines of glowing script moved across. His cheeks like living tattoos. He raised a hand not in threat, but in peace. "We heard the call," the archivist said. "After all this time, a bridge child lives. We come not to harm, but to guide." Marek didn't lower the pipe just yet. "You tracked her. That makes you dangerous." "Danger depends on intention," the archivist replied. "And we intend to stop what's coming." The Huntress kept her blade raised. "Prove it. Or bleed where you stand." Another archivist stepped forward and held out a small device. It displayed a star map with sectors marked in red. "The Purge has moved to surround this system. They aim to silence the beacon before it echoes further." Marek finally lowered the pipe. "Then you're not our enemy. But we need more than warnings." The archivist looked at the unconscious girl lying on the stone floor. His face softened. "She's more than a message, she is the key. But her mind is untrained. She burn if she tries again without guidance. The Huntress stepped protectively in front of the girl. Then help her. Train her. But first, help us get out of here alive. The chamber rumbled slightly as energy pulsed from the pedestal. Again, the beacon was still sending waves across deep space. The Huntress looked up sharply. It won't be long before someone tries to destroy this place. Marek knelt beside the girl and brushed her hair back gently. She was still warm, still breathing. But there was a strange mark forming along her temple. A pattern made of light, like ancient circuitry. What's happening to her? He asked. The archivist walked slowly forward. The signal left a scar. Her mind is adapting to language not spoken in thousands of years. She's becoming something more. Outside the chamber, distant booms shook the ground. Dust fell from the ceiling. One of the archivists tapped his comlink and spoke quickly in a strange tongue. Then he turned back to them. A purge ship. Just landed. They're entering the ruins above us now. We must move. There's a tunnel west of this chamber, the Huntress said. It leads beneath the cliffs. But it was sealed decades ago. The archivist nodded. We can open it. But the child cannot walk yet. Marek lifted her again without hesitation. Then I'll carry her. You open the way, they moved as one through the old corridors, the light of the chamber fading behind them. The Huntress took point while the archivists moved with silent purpose. The tunnel door stood before them, sealed with ancient tech. The archivist placed both hands on its surface. Blue symbols danced under his palms and the metal hissed open. As soon as they passed through, Marek heard the crash of weapons behind them. The purge had arrived and were chasing shadows in the dark. The Huntress looked back once, her blade gleaming. Then turned away. They won't catch us in time. But they will follow. The tunnel ahead narrowed into darkness. The air grew colder and heavier. But Marek's steps never faltered. The girl's breathing was slow but steady in his arms. He didn't know what she would become, or what waited beyond the tunnel, but he knew she was not alone anymore. The tunnel stretched far beneath the ground, winding like a serpent through the forgotten bones of the planet. The walls pulsed softly with old energy, reacting to the child in Marek's arms. The archivists walked ahead, lighting the path with floating devices that hovered like stars. The Huntress remained close behind Marek, her blade sheathed now, but her eyes still sharp. Marek kept glancing down at the girl. She hadn't woken since the beacon event, but her skin glowed faintly. The mark on her temple had spread into a delicate trail of light running down her neck. She's changing, Marek whispered. But into what? The archivist beside him answered without turning. Into what she was born to become, a bridge. Not just between species, but between time, memory, and forgotten power. Marek frowned. She's just a kid. She shouldn't have to carry all that. No child should, the Huntress said softly. But destiny doesn't ask permission. It chooses. And then it waits. Hours passed before the tunnel opened into a vast underground chamber. Unlike the ruins before, this place was untouched by war. It was a sanctuary, quiet and bright with natural light from crystal ceilings. In the center stood a platform surrounded by ancient machines and vines. The archivists approached it with reverence, as if entering a sacred temple. This is the Echo Core, one said. Here, the girl can recover. And here, the truth can begin to speak. Marek laid the child gently on the platform. The moment her body touched it, energy pulsed through the room. Symbols lit up in the walls. The crystals above shifted color. The Huntress stepped back, shielding her eyes. She's already connected. The core knows her. The girl's breathing grew deeper, her fingers twitched. Her eyes opened, but they no longer looked like before. They were glowing, yes, but within them danced entire galaxies. She sees the web, the archivist said. The network that once connected all intelligent life, lost to war, buried in silence. Until now, the girl sat up slowly. She looked at Marek first, then at the Huntress, then at the machines around her. "I remember their voices," she said. "The ones who built this. They were afraid. They knew this day would come." Her voice had changed. Still young, still hers, but layered with something ancient. Like a choir speaking from behind her breath, Marek knelt beside her. "Do you know who you are?" She nodded. "I'm the answer they hoped would never be needed. And now I am awake." Suddenly, an alarm blared from the archivist's comms. One of them ran to a console and tapped quickly. A projection filled the chamber, showing the purge forces closing in from above. They found the tunnel mouth. "They'll breach in minutes." The Huntress drew her blade again. "Then we stand here. We won't let them take her." "No," the girl said. She stood on her own now, her feet steady. "You won't fight for me. Not this time. I will show them." Marek's heart pounded. "What do you mean, show them?" The child stepped forward and raised one hand. Light erupted from her palm, forming a massive web of symbols above the chamber. Images of history, destruction, and hope flickered across the air. "They want war, but I offer memory. Let them feel what they've forgotten." The light burst outward, passing through the walls, into the sky, into orbit. The archivists gasped. The Huntress dropped to one knee, overwhelmed by what she felt. Marek stood frozen, watching the girl radiate power that didn't burn but healed. Above them, the purge ships paused in the air. The soldiers within them dropped their weapons without knowing why. And the war stopped for a single breath of awe. Asterisk. The purge ships floated in silence above the planet's surface. Their systems were still active, but their weapons stayed cold. Inside, their crew stared forward, unmoving, faces wet with tears. They didn't understand. The child's light had reached them not through violence, but through memory. She had shown them moments of peace from a time before hatred was taught, faces they had forgotten, words their ancestors once spoke. In the sanctuary below, the girl stood quietly with her arms lowered. The energy around her faded slowly, leaving only a faint glow in her eyes. Her body wobbled slightly before Marek rushed forward to catch her. "I'm fine," she said softly. "Just tired. It took more than I expected. You just made an army stop without firing a shot," he said. "That's more than anyone expected." The Huntress placed a hand on the girl's shoulder, steadying her. "You've awakened. Something inside them, something old, something buried. But it won't last unless we act fast." The archivists gathered around a large terminal. Maps and signals flowed across the display. One of them turned toward Marek and spoke calmly. "More ships are on their way. Some may come to listen. Others may come to kill. Then we leave," the Huntress said. "She needs rest. She needs safety, and she needs to choose what comes next with a clear mind." Marek lifted the girl again. She didn't resist. Her small arms wrapped around his neck like before. But this time, she was heavier not in weight, but in purpose. They followed the archivists through a secondary tunnel that led away from the sanctuary. The path was smoother here, lit by natural crystal veins that shimmered blue and green. No one spoke for a long time. Each step felt like they were walking toward something bigger. Not just survival, but meaning. Marek's thoughts were loud in his head, but his heart stayed calm. They emerged far from the ruins, in the shadows of a mountain range that pierced the clouds. A hidden valley stretched out before them, lush and untouched by war. The archivists called it the Hollow of Seeds. Here, ancient life still grew. Trees with silver leaves, waters that glowed softly, birds that sang songs with no fear. The girl stirred in Marek's arms and whispered, "I dreamed of this place before I was born." They built a small shelter near the water. The archivists placed shields to mask the area from orbit. The Huntress stood watch each night, never sleeping, her blade always nearby. Marek watched the girl recover slowly. she began to eat again. She smiled sometimes, but he could see the weight behind her eyes. The visions had changed her. She was no longer just a child. One evening, she asked him, "Do you think they'll come again to take me?" He didn't lie. "Yes, some will, but some will come to learn, and some will come to follow. Will you stay if they do?" She asked. "I'll stay as long as you need me," he answered without pause. She nodded and looked out over the glowing valley. "Then I will stay too. Until it's time to rise again." The Huntress joined them by the water. She removed her armor, piece by piece, and laid it beside her. For the first time, Marek saw her not as a warrior, but as a mother. "I never imagined I would kneel before a child," she said. "But she carries more strength than armies, not because of what she can destroy," Marek added, "but because of what she can remember." The girl dipped her fingers in the glowing water and watched the ripples stretch far across the surface. Far above the valley, stars shifted slightly in the night sky. A signal had been sent, and something ancient had awakened in return. Across the stars, the pulse of the beacon traveled faster than any ship. It was not just a signal. It was a memory wrapped in emotion, carried on forgotten frequencies buried deep in the void. Old satellites, long silent, blinked awake for the chew. First time in centuries, cracked relays hummed back to life. Artificial minds in ancient cores whispered names that had not been spoken in generations. All of them remembered one thing: the bridge child had returned. On distant worlds, children woke from dreams of glowing rivers and silver trees. Soldiers dropped their weapons mid-battle, their hearts suddenly filled with a longing they couldn't explain. Some wept, some screamed, some knelt in silence. And in the middle of that vast reaction, deep in the hidden valley, the child stirred. In her sleep, Marek sat nearby, carving a small figure from wood. It was his old habit, one he had not touched since the war. Now it gave his hand something gentle to do while the world shifted above. The Huntress stood at the edge of the valley, her eyes always scanning the skies. She knew the silence would not last. A wave had been sent, and waves always return. The girl awoke slowly, her eyes glowing faintly. She looked older again, not in body but in spirit. There was weight behind every blink, every breath. "I saw them," she said. "All of them, worlds crying out, some in fear, some in hope, some trying to pretend they didn't feel anything at all." Marek moved closer, setting the carving aside. "And what did you feel?" She looked at him with calm eyes. "Alone. Even in the noise I was still alone." "You're not," he said. "Not while I'm here." She reached for his hand and held it gently. "I know. That's why I keep going." The archivists returned from the mountain pass later that morning. Their faces were grim. One of them carried a shard of wreckage from a destroyed vessel. "A ship entered the system," he said. "We believe it was a scout from the Outer Lords. They were hit by a purge cruiser before reaching orbit. No survivors." The Huntress gritted her teeth. "They want to contain the signal. They're afraid of what she become." "She already is," Marek replied. "And they're too late to stop it." The girl stepped forward, looking at the broken shard. "We can't hide forever. If they won't come in peace, I must show them why peace matters." The archivists bowed their heads. "Then we will help you prepare. There are still beacons untouched. Still places where the memory lives." Marek frowned. "You mean more sanctuaries?" "Yes," the archivist said. "And if she reaches them, she can wake the rest. The full web, every forgotten truth, every lost voice." The Huntress placed her hand over her heart. "But each step deeper will bring enemies closer. She'd be hunted from system to system. I won't let them hurt her," Marek said. The girl turned to them, her voice quiet but clear. "Then we must leave soon. The galaxy is listening, and I must decide what it hears next." They began preparations at once. Supplies were packed. A hidden transport was uncovered beneath the vines. Small, fast, and silent. Before sunset, Marek walked with the girl to the glowing waters one last time. She knelt beside the stream, watching the colors shift beneath the surface. "I was born in silence," she said. "But I won't end in silence." He nodded and helped her to her feet. Together, they turned toward the ship waiting in the trees. A storm was coming from the stars, but so was something brighter. The ship rose silently from the valley floor, gliding between branches as birds scattered in its wake. It carried no war banners, no nation's mark, only purpose. Marek sat beside the girl in the cockpit. Her feet didn't reach the floor, but her presence filled the cabin. He watched her eyes as she stared at the stars ahead. Behind them, the Huntress stood with arms crossed. Her armor had been replaced with a traveler's cloak. Her blade was wrapped in cloth, not because she no longer needed it, but because it was no longer her first answer. The archivists had loaded the navigation data and left before sunrise. Their mission was finished, and their path now split from the child's. The stars ahead were alive with motion. The Purge was not the only threat. Now the echo had reached the councils, the war fleets, the mercenaries, and the forgotten kings. They would come with questions. Some with fire, some with fear, some with desperate hope. "She's awake again," Marek said quietly. "But she hasn't spoken since we left." The Huntress nodded. "She's listening to all of them. Even now, their voices call her name." The ship broke orbit and entered the void. The silence there was heavier. Space itself seemed to hold its breath as the bridge child crossed it. She looked at Marek and pointed toward a red star glowing softly in the distance. "That one. It's where the next beacon waits." "How do you know?" he asked. "I don't," she said. "But something inside me remembers. Something older than thought." As they flew closer, signals began to rise. Multiple vessels surrounded the star. Some bore flags of peace. Others had already charged weapons. "She must speak before they act," the Huntress warned. "Or they'll destroy each other before we even arrive." Marek turned to the girl. "Can you reach them now, before we land?" The child stood. Her hand pressed to the console. Her fingers glowed. Symbols formed around her palm. Her voice, though soft, filled the ship. "You watched us burn. You watched us fall. But I am still here. And I choose to speak, not scream, across the system." Ships paused. Pilots wept without understanding. Generals stopped mid-command. No one fired. "I carry no empire. No weapon. Only memory," she said. "And memory is stronger than steel when shared." Her words became light. The ship glowed. The stars responded. Ancient codes flickered in dormant satellites. The beacon was near. But this time, she didn't just wake it. She became it. The ship gently touched down on a barren moon. Its surface cracked and gray. At its center stood a spire of crystal, half buried and pulsing slowly. The girl stepped out first. The Huntress followed. Marek stayed close behind, ready for anything but no longer afraid. She placed both hands on the spire. The glow surged through the ground, into the sky, into every ship above. Her heartbeat became the pulse of the world. One by one, the ships powered down. Their captains fell to their knees. The light didn't destroy. It reminded, it united. It forgave. Marek shielded his eyes as the entire moon shone like a newborn star. When he looked again, she was standing taller, her face calm, her voice clear. "No more hiding, no more silence. Let the galaxy remember we were one people before we became many." The Huntress knelt and pressed her head to the ground. Marek stood silent, tears on his cheeks. The girl looked to the stars and whispered one final word: "Begin."